Okay, we're live. Hello and welcome to my attempt at learning how to make a roguelike in Rust using the RLTK following the roguelike tutorial. And at some point we're going to take a look at the specs book, and figure out what's going on with that, because RLTK uses specs in order to implement all of its features. So let's switch over to my display. There we go. So this is the RLTK workbook, and this is specs here. I'm not sure exactly how much of specs is used. I mean, how much of a layer RLTK provides versus how much spec provides, because a lot of our code seems to be specs related rather than, I just take a look here. For example, if I'm looking at source lib, I don't know, game state. There we go. This uses RLTK's game state. All right, so it gets the tick out of that, but it uses, I have crate star here because lib mod, I'm pulling in the specs prelude for everything else. But if we look at the visibility system, for example, this a star search, where is it? Oh, it's not in here. Field of view, there you go. Field of view is something from RLTK. And the A* search comes probably from map. No. There it is. It's in Monster AI system. Okay. Oh, right, because we're using the search functionality of RLTK. Since we're importing RLTK point, but we're also importing or using this distance 2D from RLTK and A* search from RLTK. But this stuff here, for example, this is all specs, or it's used by specs. The system, right, and the system data, and doing this join here over a million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're doing a 4-way join over entities, viewsheds, monsters, and positions. That's all comes from specs. So at some point I'm going to have to learn the ins and outs of specs. But I keep putting it off, and we're going to put it off again today, because we're going to be talking about items in inventory. We've gotten through introduction all the way to 2.7. We now have a user interface with a little thing down here, and you can see this little purple thing follows my cursor. Very exciting, and we can point at things and see what they are. We can point at a monster and see what it is. It's goblin number 2. So far we have maps, monsters, and bashing things. No roguelike murder hobo experience would be complete without items to pick up along the way. This chapter will add some basic items to the game, along with the user interface elements required to pick them up, use them, and drop them. Thinking about composing items. Yeah, so a lot of this is about composition of elements. If I look at main, oops, it's just main. We've registered all of these types of components in our ECS. And then we go ahead and use them and compose them using this with function. So we create an entity with a position, with a renderable, with a viewshed, with a monster, with a name. So this is how we generate monsters. And then this is how we generate player. As the monster has a monster, which is an empty struct, and player entity has a player, which is an empty struct as well. And I think Rust syntax allows us to eliminate the braces. Maybe? I'm going to see. I'm just going to try it out. does not. Use struct literal syntax instead. Okay, so it makes us, let's just check it out. Git checkout source main. I think maybe what I was thinking, if I look at the components, we see we have empty components here, post struct blocks tile. This might be, let me try this. And that does work. Okay, so I'm not going to do it now, but maybe on a refactor spree, we'll do that. Because I still want to refactor the map. The map has this thing called an XY index, and it returns an XY index whether or not it's in a map. And I want to change this here to an option usize, so that we don't have to do things like this where it says if IDX is less than 0 or an IDX is less, then set it to a floor, for example. Right? We should just be able to loop until we get a none back. Or we could just say if is sum and have the bounds checking all done in here. Yeah. So I'm not going to do that now, though. It's another thing on my list of things to do. But let's see. What makes up an item? Major difference between object-oriented and entity component systems is that rather than thinking about something as being located on an inheritance tree, you think about how it composes from components. Ideally, you already have some of the components ready to use. So what makes up an item? Thinking about it, an item can be said to have the following properties. It has a renderable, a way to draw it. If it's on the ground, it's awaiting pickup. It has position. If it's not on the ground, in a backpack, it needs a way to indicate that it is stored. We need. I want to submit PRs. I think I said this yesterday. I want to submit PRs against this, but we get too much in the weeds, getting lost doing that. We'll start with inpack. Okay, it's an item, which implies it can be picked up, so we'll need an item component of some sort, and if it can be used, it will need some way to indicate that it can be used and what to do with it. Consistently random. Computers are actually really bad at random numbers. This is true. Computers are inherently deterministic, so without getting into cryptographic stuff, when you ask for a random number, you're actually getting a really hard to predict next number in a sequence. Sequence is controlled by a seed. With the same seed, you always get the same dice rolls. Since we have an ever-increasing number of things that use randomness, let's go ahead and make the RNG a resource. All right, so I think we've used it a few times. Random number generator. Right? Okay, we've used it twice. Once in the map and once to create it here. Yeah, so we must be using it to place something in main, and map. Obviously, we need it to randomly choose locations of the walls. The rooms, and whether or not how we're gonna connect two rooms together horizontally and vertically. But if we insert a random number generator at the beginning with a specific seed, then we won't be creating a brand new one each time, and therefore we're going to have some consistency. We can actually have a seed which can generate the same world each time. Right. We'll worry about that later, though. Okay. Right now it's just going to make our code cleaner. All right, so let's add that as a resource, and all our resources are down here. So let's insert it first in case one of our other things needs it. GS ECS insert RLTK random number generator new. All right, and then we'll be able to just pull it out using fetch, right? So one monster per room, always in the middle, makes for rather boring play. We also need to support spawning items as well as monsters. To that end, we're going to make a new file, spawner.rs. Oh boy. Would have been nice if we actually modified the map code to use this so that we know everything's working for that. Right, here's where we grab a writable reference to it, and we can call roll dice. Bum, 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 bum. So it looks like what we're doing is we are moving the player and monster generating code into this spawner.rs. So let's just copy that over. Main into source lib spawner.rs. And then we'll just delete the parts of the code we don't need. So we need RGB and random number generator. We don't need point. And we're going to use, and I just been doing tutorials. Oh, we can't do that here. We can do create star. But I'm going to do the individuals now. Combat stats, player, renderable, name, position, view, shed, monster, blocks, tile. Anything else? That's it. All right, and then we don't have this, but we do have, here's our monster code, right? So this stays the same, or it stays similar, right? We're going to change this to fn monster s2 string. Now I've seen this syntax before. I think that just means S is any type that implements toString. And we're going to use it here. And I think the alternate way to do it is just inside the brackets, blah, 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 right? And then say name impl toString. Something like that. But let's just follow their syntax. I need the closing. There we go. ECS world. We have an X, Y position, a glyph that we're going to use. I'm going to import font jar type here just to save typing. And font jar type and name, which is a type S, right? And ooh, I did a back swipe. Okay. So, oh, we're down here. So we're on the create entity, and we'll pull that out with position, renderable, view shed. Yep, that's the same monster. We've got a name, and now we'll just say name to string. Like that. It still blocks the tile, it still has combat stats, and we still build it. Okay. And that's that. Actually, we want to shift everything in. Right? Oh, and then, oh no, position XY. That still works. Okay. So now instead, and we're going to get rid of all this. Yeah, I'm doing this from the bottom up because we had the monster first in the main file. So now we're in spawner. Okay, just double checking. And then to create an orc, ECS world X I32 Y I32 monster ECS XY. To CP437. To CP437 of orc. And we're going to call it an orc. And it's just closed brace, right? Yep. And then we're going to do the same thing for the goblin. Oh, what did I do? To the top, goblin, and we're going to change the O to a G and change orc to goblin. All right, so this will generate an orc and a goblin. Orc goblin is called. Then we have a random monster thing here. I deleted the old one, but that's okay. And this is a public function. Comments like this, I'm adding it here because it's in the file, but comments like this are not comments that I put in my code, because it's saying what the code is doing. It's not saying why. And I reserve comments for why I'm doing something, not what I'm doing, because what I'm doing should be obvious from the code. This is random monster. It's given a location of XY, and it's calling a spawn function. So it's obvious from the code that we are generating a random monster. The question is, why are we generating random monsters? And hopefully that question is obvious based on the fact that we are creating a roguelike. So I wouldn't have a comment here at all, but that's me. X, I32, Y, I32. For documentation, yes, it's useful. And that's when you go into the what it is. And that's why these three are here. That's Rust's. Why did I tab in too far? Let roll I32. Okay, so what are we doing? We're grabbing a mutable reference to the random number generator and rolling the dice with it. So we're going to do this instead. Let mute RNG ECS write resource random number generator, and we're just going to return RNG roll dice 1 2, and we're going to fix our typo. Right, so this will set roll to that, and then we're going to match on roll. Yeah, it's probably easier to read this way. Match roll rule. One gets an orc, and anything else gets a goblin. Right? Okay, so I think we've done this last part. So now we're going to do the player, and that's this guy here. Move him up and just say pub and player ECS mute world player X I32 player Y I32, and we're going to return an entity, and that means we don't want to put a semicolon at the end, and we'll close it there, and instead of saying set it, we're just going to say GS there. Right? And then all of this stuff goes away. Right? And I think that's the whole thing. This is spawner, and now we need to call it from main. So as you can see, we've taken the existing code in main and wrapped it up in functions in a different module. We don't have to do this, but it helps keep things tidy. Since we're going to be expanding our spawning, it's nice to keep things separated out. Yeah, now we'll modify main to use it. Okay. We have to add it to our lib. I'm doing things slightly different to the way mod spawner, and then use colon star. I'm doing things slightly different to the way they've done it. They've got all of their files in the same directory, and what I'm doing is I'm putting it in a library with this use tutorial thing. I did that in the second or third video. I'm putting these up on YouTube too, so check them out. Right, so now instead of creating the monsters in the loop, we're going to just call the spawner to spawn the monsters in a loop. So we still grab the room center, but now all we do is call the spawner code. Random, which I think is in our current namespace. GS, ECS, XY. And all of this goes away. And then the player entity is just player. GCS, ECS, player X, and player Y. And all of this goes away because we ruined it. Now they put the player entity first, so let's do that. I don't know if that's going to make a difference, but it keeps these things together at least. We don't need that anymore. And we're still insert. Oh, yeah. See, we need to insert the random number generator in our ECS before we do these guys. So let's do that. Right? And it's definitely tidier. Cargo run will give you exactly what we had at the end of the previous chapter. Huh. If it builds. Okay. I shouldn't laugh. Yeah. What did I do wrong? Oh, I spelled it wrong. Libmod. There we go. Let's try building that. And everything blew up. Ooh. I put a dot after ECS. And I forgot to close my with here. Okay. So that happened down here, right? And for some reason I put a dot after ECS. There. Okay, those two errors. GS not found in this scope. Oh. Oh yeah, they just have ECS. Okay. And I gotta remove the dot from that one. Right? That should do it. Oh, everything blows up. Oh, okay. In order to okay. And that's in main. Right? In order to insert this point, we need player X and player Y, but in order to get player X and player Y, we have to do this. So we do that first, and then we create the player entity down here. Okay. Thank you, Rust. Oh, and then we're not using this random number generator. GCS insert player entity. Oh boy, everything's blown up. But this one's easy, right? We don't need this anymore. Yeah, we do. It's used right here. What? Did I misread it? Oh, maybe. Maybe it's complaining about it because the other code blew up. So let's just do that for now. Since we're importing it, we don't need to specify it. And then the other error was player entity doesn't exist, so we'll do that here. We'll insert the map there. We will put that there, and we're going to insert the player's point here. I still don't like the idea that we have point as a player position. And then we're also inserting the player entity as a thing. That should be cleaned up. Okay, then we have the random number generator, which we have to call. We have to insert before we call the random monster. The run state's fine. The game log is fine. We got an extra blank line. And that's that. Okay. Let's see if this builds. We're not using RGB because we moved it into spawner. We're not using I in main. What did we change it to? Oh, just room. Okay, we can do that. And then the map gets moved. So we can't use the map after we've inserted the map. Okay. So we have to insert the map after we use the map. I was trying to keep everything together, but you can't do that. RGB is no longer used. And what was the last one? Oh, I, right? We're not using I. You don't need to enumerate the rooms anymore. Right? We're just doing map rooms iter skip 1 and forget the enumerate. Okay. I thought I fixed that. Oh, you have, okay. I didn't fix it completely. I moved it part of the way. I gotta move it the rest of the way. Because here's where we're using map, but we can't insert it until after everything's done. All right. And we can't run this until this is done. Let's put all these together at least. Like that. Does that work? Is that clean? Am I bike shedding too much? Am I shaving too many yaks? Okay. It builds. Now we're back exactly where we were before. We still have this little guy. We still create the thing. Oh, we should be able to create more than one monster per room now, right? There might be some rooms without any monsters at all. No, it's still one monster per room. I'm gonna die before I get to see. Yeah, random monster. Oh, okay. We haven't done multiple monsters per room yet, right? We talked about it. One monster room always in the middle, so we need to. Okay, we talked about making multiple monsters per room, but we didn't do it yet. All right, so we're going to extend the function to spawn multiple monsters per room, with 0 being an option. First, we change the map constants, which we introduced in the previous chapter, to be public in order to use them in spawner.rs. Okay, so that's actually something we already did last week when we were updating some other code. What was the other code we modified yesterday? I don't remember now. Let's refresh here. This is where my repo is. Oh yeah, for the tooltips, we needed to know how wide the map was. So I had made these public, and I changed the 50 to a 43. So those are all there now. We want to control how many things we spawn monsters and items. We'd like more monsters than items to avoid too much of a Monty Hall dungeon. Also in spawner.rs, we'll add these constants next to the other constants makes sense. How many other constants are there in spawner.rs? 0. So I'll put them next to the other 0 constants. Const max monsters. I32, const max items, I32. Okay, so I guess that's the max per room. We'll create a new function called spawn room that uses these constants. So this isn't spawning a room, right? This is spawning items in a room. Fills rooms with stuff. Okay. Creates the player entity. All right. So fills a room. Was there actually a comment up there? I just ignored it. Oh, yep. Spawns the player and returns her entity object. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me delete these lines as well. I want to save where we are. What we got? Git add source, git diff staged. What do we got? So yeah, we added the spawner. We have the new spawner file. We have main.rs. The modifications we did, we pulled everything out and called spawner instead, and that's that. So let's git commit that. Refactor spawner. New things to its own file. All right. Push that up. And it should be here. Ta-da! Okay, and then we're gonna put these back, right? And then we're gonna do the thing. Fills a room with stuff. Exclamation point. pub fn spawn room world room rect monster spawn points back new. Okay. Scope to, I don't need that comment. Okay, so we're going to grab the random number generator and we're going to do stuff. And then there's something that the borrow checker will complain about if we don't put this in its own scope. And I'm guessing maybe that random monster, since random monster uses RNG, let's get it working, and then I can try commenting out the braces and see what the complaint is about the borrow checking. ECS write resource. Monsters equals roll dice 1 max monsters plus 2 minus 3. All right. In 0 dot dot num monsters. You don't have to give it a variable name like this. You can just leave it with the underscore. Added equals false. While we haven't added anything, we grab an X position for room X1. RNG roll dice 1 I32 colon abs room X2 minus room X1 as use size. Okay. I guess and then we'll do the same thing here for Y. I guess if I think we generated that such that X1 is always less than X2. Maybe they're just being super safe here. I don't know. Let IDX equals Y times map width. See, now why wouldn't you call the map? Because we don't have a map, right? We don't have access to the world's map here. Although the map should exist, we can't insert it into the ECS until we're done with it, maybe? Source main. It would be nice if we could just say, you know, yeah, because we need, no, we're not writing to the map, right? We're just adding new components. So we could get a read-only reference to the map here, and then call the map's XY function. I'm going to add that here. To do call get map from ECS and call XY IDX? Question mark? Okay. If monster spawn points contains IDX, so if the if there's no monster there, push IDX, then add a monster. All right, and that's that. And now we're going to actually spawn the monsters. Monster spawn points iter. But see, now we're reconverting it back. IDX mod map width. Let y equals IDX mod divided by a map width. And then create a random monster ECS x as I32, y as I32. So we convert it from an XY into an IDX and then deconvert it here. So it's why not? I guess it's more straightforward to do it this way rather than inserting them directly into the ECS and then trying to look up whether or not we've inserted one, right? So we're assuming that there are no monsters anywhere when we do this in this room. Okay. Oh, look at that. This obtains the RNG and the map. Whereas it does not obtain the map. It rolls a dice for how many monsters it should spawn. It then keeps trying to add random positions that aren't already occupied until sufficient numbers have been created. Right. So it's not grabbing the map. And it would be nice if it did, because then we would be able to use, like I have here, use the XYIDX. It'd also be good to insert. Alright, I'm not going to worry about it. Each monster is then spawned at the determined location. The borrow checker isn't at all happy with the idea that we mutably access RNG and then pass the ECL itself along. Right, okay, so we grab the RNG from the ECS and then we're passing the ECS into the random monster generator, and so we have to make sure that we've dropped a reference to, or mutable reference to the RNG before we can grab a new mutable reference within random monster. Okay. So we introduce scope to keep it happy. In main.rs, and we replace our monster spawner with this. Okay. So we no longer have to grab the room center. We now just call spawn room. And we pass in the room. Like that. So that means that spawn monster, a random monster, is no longer public. If you cargo run the project now, it will have between 0 and 4 monsters per room. I'm gonna die. Alright, well first let's get it to compile and then we can die. So rect is not found in the scope. A local variable discerner. Oh, did I forget to change that to an X? Sorry, change that to a Y. I did. And what's not in scope is, oh, I didn't grab map width and map height. I don't need map height, just map width. Anything else? Map width, map width. I misspelled roll dice. Okay. And rect. That was the other one. Okay, rect. Get rect. You need roll dice with 2 L's. Same here. Oops. What else blows up? Map width. Expected U size found I32. That's true. That's true. Because map width is a U32. Huh. Wonder why this didn't blow up. Oh, he changed his U sizes. Source lib map. Yeah. That's interesting. Wonder what's going to blow up if we change these to U size. Right? Because every place that references them it now needs. So that doesn't need to say as U size anymore. See, it's putting this in here. Do I have to change the map? Struct. Right, because this says I32, I32. Okay, you know what we're going to do is I'm going to leave this for now, and I'll refactor it in a little bit. And I'll fix it in here. In spawner. And every reference to map width is going to be I32. let map width I32 is equal to map width as I32, and then every reference here is going to be MWI32. Oh no, I got it backwards. MWU size as U size, and then every map width is going to be MWU size, like that. All right, so that should make that build. Max items we're not using yet. Okay, I'll live with that because I bet you we're going to get to that next. Yep. Although I am over my time. So I'm going to comment that out. So we don't have any warnings. I am going to rebuild it to make sure there are no more warnings. I'm going to add the code. Oh, you know, I built it, but I didn't try it out. So do we have multiple monsters per room except for the first room? This room has no monsters. Oh, so that's different already. This room has no monsters. It's still different, but not different enough. I want to see a room with multi-monsters. Uh-oh, I'm not getting any monsters in any room. Well, we have to get it working before we call it a day. Oh, oh, look at that. There's 2 monsters in there. At least 2. 3. All right. Look at that. And I'm halfway dead just by stepping into the room a few times. Neat. Okay, yeah, I am going to call it a day there. Let's do the cargo format and cargo clippy thing. Make sure there's no complaints there. There's no new files, so we can just do a quick diff here. Oh, this sorted that. Yep. Space that out. So we have a room spawner, which spawns monsters in a room, and will generate a random monster at 0 to 4 randomly chosen monsters, right? This reformatted the players thing. This reformatted that thing. Oh, it got rid of the braces. Okay. Good to know. Yeah, this got cleaned up. Good, good. This got spaced out. And we changed this to just spawn room and pass the room directly in. Right? That's pretty straightforward. I don't see anything that's surprising. I do want to fix this, so let me add a to-do on that line. To-do clean up map I32 versus U size. All right, so that, what are we doing? We now spawn 0 to 4 monsters per room. No exclamation point. We already used up our quota of exclamation points right there. Git push. Check to see it's there. Because I'm paranoid. There it is. All right. Very good. That is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.